BSides DC would like to thank all of our sponsors, and a special thank you to all of our speakers, volunteers, and organizers for making 2018 a success.
So good morning, everyone. Thank you for those of you, there's about 5 of you who decided to stay in the room from our earlier presentation. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. My name is Kathleen Smith, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for a company called cybersecjobs.com and clearjobs.net. We've been involved with BSides DC for the last 3 years. Please come back to this room at 3 o'clock where we will be doing the hiring happy hour. Not only will we have employers who are looking to talk to you about future jobs, but we will also have 6 absolutely fabulous recruiters who will give you advice on your resumes and any other career search questions you have. So I've been fortunate to have recruiter panels or moderate recruiter panels for the last 4 years. There was a conference that Doug and I were at in September, and the theme was The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So you will see a lot of references in this presentation because I just thought it was a lot of fun. So we're going to introduce our presenters. First is Kevin, and then we're going to do Doug, and then we're going to do Susie, and then Matt. So Kevin?
Hi, I'm Kevin Bordlemay. I run the technical recruiting team over at FireEye. For us, most of that hiring is around incident responders, red teamers, security analysts, all the really fun stuff that happens when a breach occurs. And
Doug?
I am the Director of Talent Acquisition for MAG Aerospace, formerly same role with Coalfire and Veris Group. Really shocks me. I never tried to recruit Kevin because we need some recruiters there. But well, yeah, we got a few back. And to Kathleen's point, haven't had the opportunity to do some of these panels before, and it is a wonderful opportunity because there is a real lack of conversation between recruiters and candidates as to what the process looks like from our perspective, what's going on behind the scenes, and for that matter, we very often don't have a real sense of what the candidate pool is up against and experiencing. So I welcome every opportunity to come to one of these events.
Susie?
Hi, my name is Susie Greco. I am president of SG2 Recruiting. We are a firm that supports both small and national organizations in their hiring. My background is a little bit of agency recruiting and corporate recruiting, so I hope to be able to bring some of those 2 pieces to the discussion today.
And Matt.
Hi everyone, Matt Duren. I manage the technical recruiting efforts at Tenable. I see a couple people I've worked with in the past in the audience. Please no heckling, especially in the front here. I've done a lot of things within the recruiting community. I work with Kathleen on another board, and Susie actually, for a recruiting community here in DC, but I've also helped out with BSides Las Vegas. I've given a couple talks locally from Unallocated as well with these guys up front. Just on some of this topic, right? Just understanding what you can do to engage with us, what we can do to engage with you, what things we screw up, what things you screw up. So we'll talk about all that stuff. I like kind of pulling back the curtain and talking with everybody about ways to improve the communication between our groups.
And so that's been sort of my role as the Chief Marketing Officer for cybersecjobs.com, is to get the conversation going, because I would always hear about people being upset with recruiters and posting them on the Twitter handle, shit recruiters say, or making jokes about them, about all of the awful LinkedIn posts. And unfortunately, everyone then thinks that all recruiters are like that. And I have the opportunity and privilege to work with so many great recruiters that I go to every single conference and submit a proposal and say, let me bring a panel of recruiters up so that we can talk about that there are really great people who like making a difference in people's lives by helping them get a job. So looking on Google, you will find that this is what people think recruiters are. A lot of people think it's happy-go-lucky. A lot of people are not really quite sure what they do. A lot of people think recruiters are lazy, and a lot of people think that this is an easy job. Well, I want each one of our panelists, and we'll start with Kevin and go all the way down to Doug, sort of talk about what is your typical day like? Who do you interact with, and what is the thing that sucks up most of your time?
So first off, there is no typical day. Every day is crazy insane for recruiters, and quite honestly, we're always plugged in. I mean, any recruiter who's working you wish you weren't 24/7, but you are 24/7. And that includes a lot of different things. And we talk to a lot of candidates, and truthfully, we talk to a lot of candidates that never make it any further in the process. I think for me, probably the greatest time suck is the fact that, when folks apply to everything. I love that people apply to jobs, but, apply to the right roles, and you're going to get a better response from us instead of 50 roles, I think.
Matt, your typical day? It's playing with your daughters all the time,
It
right?
is. Yeah, there was a comment about things people wouldn't know about us. I'll just share it right now. I wouldn't expect you to know about us. I know every word to the Frozen soundtrack. It's great. You want me to belt it out, I can. Yeah, I tried that once and then I got shut down. My day, I manage a team now. So I'll speak to that a little bit. And I actually, up until recently, had 2 people in Dublin. So my day started at Dublin, Ireland, not Ohio. My day would usually start about 6 a.m. with their responses, right? They've been at work for a couple hours at that point. They have things they need to do. So I'm on, I'm maybe watching ESPN or something like that and eating my oatmeal and drinking my coffee, but I'm still, engaging with them on a regular day. I do get in the office a little later on. I do make a nice list of things I need to accomplish through the day, and as soon as I finish that list, something else pops up that wasn't on that list, and so, yeah, I finished the list. So I try to plan out my day. I just know things that I have to get done, and then stuff hits the fan and people come up to me. But I think what sucks up a lot of my time, this is going to be the dumbest thing in the world, so administrative, but it's scheduling things. Oh, it's terrible. You got candidates where you want to bring them in, you want to get them fast through the process, and the managers, the hiring managers, the executives are talking to you about, hey, when's this person coming in? It's like, I got to juggle 6 people's calendars plus the availability of the candidates, and I have to do that 2-3 times for one job during a day. Sounds really boring, I know, I'm sorry, but it really is. I think you guys, any recruiter out there, it's getting those scheduling pieces together.
Susie, your typical day, I know you're, I get emails from you at midnight, so I know you're
I was
always...
going to say, it's a long day. I don't think it's a day. Like you said, we're on 24/7. Because I'm not a corporate recruiter per se, I'm actually spending half of my time talking to my hiring managers for different companies. So they've reviewed a resume, they like it or they don't like it, and they're telling me to shift my focus because they already hired the person that they asked me to search for them. So it's getting information from my hiring managers, finishing my client calls, my candidate calls that I already scheduled, thinking I knew what I was looking for because the hiring manager said this is what I was looking for, and then perhaps finishing those calls and then starting to source for the new requirements that the hiring manager had shifted to, and then the administrative tasks. There's a lot of scheduling. There's a lot of sourcing, figuring out which way I'm going to find the candidates, how I'm going to find you. Are you going to be someone who's hiding in social media? Are you going to be hiding in plain sight on LinkedIn? So sourcing is I would say a big portion of my day. I wouldn't say it's the hardest part of my day, but it takes the largest portion of my day.
Can I find one?
Oh.
Sourcing means cyber stalking you guys.
Absolutely correct.
Stalkers.
Absolutely correct. That is how I spend most of my day.
So in the time that I've known Doug, he's been at 3 different companies. And at one time you were the sole recruiter part-time with Chris, I believe. And then you moved on to another company and managed people. And now you manage people and do a variety of other things as the recruiter. So your typical day.
I do. I lead a team of 9 people, geographically dispersed, and some of the programs that we support. In fact, we have more people in our company working downrange in Afghanistan than in the United States. So for me, it's time zone management, but it's also managing up and managing sideways, I'd like to say. It's managing my team, making sure everyone knows what they need to do, knows what their goals are for a given day, but it's also, and this is the hardest part, managing up. Every single hiring manager thinks that you should be working solely on their requirements. And no matter what those requirements are, how bizarre, how incomprehensible, they expect it to have happened yesterday. So it's managing their expectations, managing their role in the process to get things done, and then it's managing candidate expectations. It's managing the process to be sure that everyone is getting what they need out of it, and then it's managing to the C-suite, because at any given time, and it just happened to me this in the last couple of days, brand new program, board of directors is looking, got to get this done. Oh, well, we should have had it done 2 weeks ago, but that wasn't communicated to us. So it's managing all those expectations, and that biggest time suck goes into the level of communication that's going top, down, sideways. Invariably things get lost, and trying to make sure the least amount gets lost, and when it does, that we're able to pick it up, put it in the right place, and run with it quickly. And that sucks up a huge portion of the day.
And then when we're done with all of that, we go to meetups at night so we can eat pizza and beer with you.
So, Susie, since you chimed in, I'm going to ask you to start the next question. What part of the job process, inquiry, tech interview, face-to-face interview, job offer, negotiations, what part of the process does the job seekers you work with, what do they mess up the most? What is the one mistake that they make? And is there been any time when a job seeker has just totally impressed the socks off of you?
God, I'm going to start with the first one. I hate it when they are not honest about where they are in the job search with other people. So if I'm talking to them and I'm talking to them about what the process is for me and my client, about the technical interview, then the technical screen, and then the panel interview, I'm going through that entire process and saying this is going to take maybe a week and a half. And then I ask them, okay, where are you in your job search? Like, I'm sure I'm not the only recruiter who found you. Where are you? Oh, I'm not looking. You're the only one I'm talking to. And only to find out when we were going through the process, I can't make it, I accepted another offer. So that probably is the one thing that really upsets me the most, because I'm candid with my expectations of them, and I'm hoping that they would be candid with me.
Has anyone impressed you?
Yes.
Okay.
When I'm talking to them about a particular client and that client has a GitHub account and they are telling me that for the interview with me, even me, the recruiter, I checked out the GitHub account, I know what they're doing, I'm pretty impressed, I'd like you to tell me what they're doing more on the microservices piece or the languages they're using. Even though I can't answer that question, it just demonstrates they did their homework, especially for a technical company, that the GitHub account is available and they did it before they talked to me. 2 people. And I've been doing this for 5.5 years. 2 people have done that.
Matt, what do people mess up and what do people impress you with?
Yeah, I think one of the bigger things, and this is something for everybody to understand, I think when candidates don't know their value, we're talking salary here, so it's a little bit on the negotiation piece or the salary conversation. So the pain point for me is when we've talked about a number, this number was good last week when we talked, it was good the day before the final interview, only to get that piece of paper and say, these are the words that I hear all the time. I did a little more research and that number's 10K, 20K, whatever it is. It's more than what I was able to go back and get for that person. So people have different opinions on this. That's why I like the salary discussion early on. You have things documented, people understand, and it may incite you to go do that research before we get to that last interview. So that to me is kind of the big mistake. But flip side, so I do some fun stuff with my LinkedIn profile because LinkedIn is really boring and it sucks a lot. But I have hex code in it, I have some Easter eggs in it, and it's got like Simpsons references and things like that. And so somebody actually, a job seeker, a young kid, just graduating college, found all those things that I put in my profile and framed the entire email to me from the subject line, and he found my personal email address, which is not that hard, but still interesting. Found all that, referenced the stuff in the subject, wrote a whole paragraph about it, and then referenced something about beer afterwards, which was really good. I would have gone for beer just for the email. He applied. I looked at the resume earlier, and I didn't think it was great, but I'm like, they did that much to get my attention. I'm going to call him. Okay, I interviewed him, passed him on, and that person a couple weeks later started with us. So there are things out there that you can find to connect with the people in the organization. Find those things if that's what you want to do. You really want to go there. Find those things and use those to engage with the people that you're going to talk to.
Kevin?
I'd say, adding on to what Matt said, I think preparation ends up being where a lot of people mess up. Don't necessarily just apply to a job with the exact same resume to every single job you apply for. Go in there, actually tailor what you're applying for go in, understand what you're actually talking to the recruiter about the role. You know, unfortunately, a lot of recruiters, if you don't impress us, you're not getting any further in the process. You know, you have to understand that we are still evaluating. A lot of us actually have a pretty good idea of what we're talking about from a technical perspective. So I think that lack of preparation tends to hurt a lot of people that are out there. I think the ones that have impressed me are the ones that kind of go above and beyond from a preparation standpoint. So I typically like to ask questions of candidates, even the technical ones, that are more scenario based, and have them walk me through how they would tackle certain things, in particular, how they would go about doing a red team assessment. And the guys that come up and have all these crazy off the wall ideas that does something different than everybody else is more impressive than the guy that tells me, well, use this tool, this tool, this tool, this tool. Like, show me something that no one else is doing, and that's going to get my attention really fast.
So Doug, how about, what do people mess up the most, and what has someone done to impress you in the process?
It's going to be a little redundant here. To Matt's point, that is the biggest pain in the neck that I run into. Do your best to know your value before you ever get to an interview process. If you're dealing with a recruiter who won't give you a sense of what the job does pay, then you're not dealing with a very good recruiter. It is incumbent on us to be transparent and early in the process, as Matt alluded to. But if we get down to the wire and you're the person, and all of a sudden that number changes significantly, it doesn't look good. And we may still be able to get you in the door, but you've already set a negative tone. So get that out of the way right off the bat and be consistent. If it's a job that you want and you get it, there's going to be plenty of opportunity to increase your earnings and move forward. On the positive side, again, it is that preparation. Nothing impresses more than somebody who, from an initial screening, has genuine, well-thought, well-researched questions about the company. Well, I read that you did this assessment for this company. That's really cool. They're huge. What was that like? Anything. Just the recognition that they have done at least a cursory website search and seen what we do. And if you want to go to the next level along the lines of what Matt described, I've had people ask me about blogs I wrote. Now, yeah, it's kind of sucking up, but to Kevin's point, we are gatekeepers. And if you can suck up to us, you're going to have a much better chance of getting the rest of your story told. And who knows, you might find that we do have something interesting about us that you might want to ask about. So absolutely, the preparation, the research, and the consistency and transparency in terms of what you want.
So, yes, Susie's done blogs, Matt's done blogs. I think, Doug, there's like 8 or 9 blog articles that Doug has out there. So, one of the ways to learn more about recruiters is actually see if they've written a blog. A lot of them have either written a blog for their company or they've written it for someone, else in the community. But, they're not just people who sit behind desks. So what's interesting is when people get angry at recruiters, they'll say, well, the recruiter didn't get me the job. The recruiter did not hire me. And I think this is interesting that a lot of people think that the decision maker is the recruiter. They may be an influencer, but they may not necessarily be the decision maker. So Matt and the rest of the panel, please describe what is the decision-making process in your company, because each one of you has a different process. And what a lot of people think about or don't think about is how long it's going to take them to find that next job. You may do a rage quit at 3:50 on Friday afternoon and expect to have a job that following Monday. Then you are pretty ignorant about what the current job search process is all about and how long it's going to take you to find that next job, because a lot of people don't realize you have a mortgage to pay and bills to pay. If you're really frustrated, do a rage quit, and then it takes you 6 months to find a job, that's no one else's fault but your own. So Matt, you want to talk about the decision-making process and the interview process for your company?
Sure, and to something that you said a second ago is the recruiter didn't get me the job. I like to think about when you were in school and I got an A, but the teacher gave me an F, right? Just think about it in that context. Like, it's the same thing. You got a grade. Did you earn the grade or not? And so that's to cover that point. But as far as process, it's going to vary by job. So I'll give you at least one that we have. and this is kind of our technical support team, which is very relevant to the group here. But we have a core set of questions. We'll ask about 10 technical questions. We have the answer. There's a yes or no. There's a black or white. There's an A, B, or C, right? So we know that, and we're scoring against that. We have to have somebody get at least 3 out of 5 in the first half, 3 out of 5 in the second half to be minimally qualified. All right, so those are going to be technical questions. You get past that, there's a technical screen with one of our team leads on the team. Again, it's not as black or white with that. It's not like we're scoring assessment, but we're testing Linux knowledge, we're testing scanning knowledge, things like that. And then there's an on-site as well with another about 3 or 4 hiring managers that come in. We have different shifts, so it may depend on what shift we're talking about. And then it's a very technical interview there too. You're going to be grilled on networking, you're going to be grilled on security. There's a lot of things that you're going to have to know. So there are a lot of people in that process. There's the recruiter, there's the tech lead, and there's at least 2 managers, maybe sometimes more than that are evaluating you at that stage. Obviously, if you got to that last stage, you've done well enough. But just know that those are a lot of things that you'll need to prepare for. The questions that you get ahead of time, you're going to want to know your stuff as you walk into the recruiter screen, and that's a phone call. If you're talking about something more software oriented or research oriented, we have challenges. We use HackerRank for testing, for code testing. We have certain research-based things for if you're going for security research to understand plugins. Those are things you're going to have to take back and do. It may take you an hour. It may take you 3 hours. Understand that those are, and you may have to do that over a couple of days too. So understanding the process of the interview that you're going for, you're going to want to know that. That'll give you a better idea of how long this is probably going to take.
Susie? Because Susie, you represent clients.
Right.
So you have an entirely different process.
With every company, it's different. So I'm going to go with Red Hat since it's a big company that you probably have heard of. Their initial process is to do a preliminary tech screen, half hour, and then if you make it past that cut, you get green lighted to get permission to take a HackerRank assessment that's designed for either platform or for middleware. And then if you pass or get a decent number there, then you're invited to do a panel interview where you are doing a presentation. You are delivering a presentation in any format you want to a panel of technical and non-technical individuals so they can assess your communication skill sets. All that entire process may take anywhere between 1 to 3 weeks. And so that is the process, but ultimately someone on the client team is making a decision at every stage whether or not you move forward. So if you're moving forward, you're getting the green light from me. I'm like, hey, great, you're going forward next. If you're getting you're not moving forward, it's because someone on the team had said the technical skill sets or the communication skill sets were not there.
So Doug, you represent, you have your clients, but then you also have customers, right?
Well, my clients and customers are the same. They are the folks that work for MAG Aerospace and other companies I worked for before, so my client base is internal. In terms of process, it's fairly consistent with what you've heard. There'll be a recruiter screen, there'll be a technical screen, there'll be an in-person interview. Depending on the role, there may be either assessments or presentations, and that all varies according to what the role might be. But to the decision-making process, ultimately, I don't know of very many companies that the recruiter plays a huge role in the final decision. We can be influencers. We are information peddlers. We may be asked as far as just soft skills, how did we find this person? But ultimately, the hiring manager is going to be that authority. But in the difference between corporate recruiting that I do and the work that Susie, for example, does, if you're working with an agency, a firm that's representing a client, that recruiter is truly an advocate for you. It's a little dicier on the corporate level because we want to make sure that while we are advocating for what you bring positive to the role, we're also letting you present yourself as you are. We're not going to try and sell you to a hiring manager necessarily. But the advocate on an agency side, they want you to get the job. They want you to be the right person for the job, and they can coach you in a wonderful way to be better prepared to get it. And that goes both agency and corporate, and I think it's been alluded to here. But as soon as you talk to the recruiter, ask about the process. What is it? Are there challenges? Are there assessments? How long is it going to take? They'll tell you, so get a real picture going in so that you can be better prepared. Any one of us wants you to put your best foot forward, so we may not give you the answers to the test, but we'll tell you what the test looks like so that you're prepared and you can put your best self into it. So ask the questions up front. How long is it going to take? Who am I going to talk to? Then look them up. If you can get a name of the hiring manager you're going to interview with, check them out, see what their background is. Who knows, you might have a connection to this person you don't even realize worked at the same company 4 years ago. All of those things are very valuable to you.
Yeah, and keep in mind the process is not just contingent on us either. It's contingent on you in a lot of cases. When we're talking technical assessments, if we send you a technical assessment and you wait 2 weeks to complete it, already we're worried about, are you actually interested in the role? Are you actually motivated for this type of position? There is that back and forth there. We have to understand that, hey, you have an interest in the role as well as from our side. I had another thought with that. What was it? I would say for us, decision making, I think we actually differ a little bit in the fact that I've actually rejected candidates who've gotten to on-site. I've been the decision maker to make that decision because of something they did in that on-site interview. In particular, I had 1 or 2 candidates who, quite honestly, their attitude was one that was not going to fit with the organization, and we had to make the call. Hiring team loved the guy, loved the background, knew for a fact if they came in the door, half the team would leave. And I think sometimes that's a perspective recruiting can give, is that we have a much better attitude or much better understanding of the attitudes and cultural aspects across the organization to understand who and what's going to fit across the company as well.
So do you want?
Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
So by saying that, you made me think of something that I never really thought of before. A question to ask the recruiters: what is your decision-making role? I mean, just ask them straight up. Like, do you play a part in this process? And normally, sometimes they don't. They are just pushing people around, but sometimes they do. I've had at the executive level, I have a last call with the VP or the C-suite to say, what did you think? Are we making the right decision here? Is this something that we should be doing? Is there anything that you saw in this process that we should be aware of? So I would ask the question about, recruiter, what is your role in the evaluation process?
And what's interesting is that a lot of people do not take advantage of the recruiter's expertise. As Kevin said, they're going to be able to answer a lot of the questions that you might have, even though you're going to ask those questions further on in the process. What is the culture fit? What is the sort of decision-making process within the organization? Is it very bureaucratic? Are you very driven by the customers you represent? I mean, a lot of us in this space are working for government contractors who then, serve the Veterans Administration or DHS, and understanding what that culture is about. Because yes, you may have the technical skills, but if you don't have the culture fit with the company, and then if they support another customer, you're definitely going the wrong way because you're not understanding that process. The other thing that a lot of job seekers don't do, and I am really, really surprised about this, is they don't have a network of recruiters. So if you are going to find a vacation spot or go to a movie or go to a restaurant, you have a network of people that you value their opinion. You value where they, what movies they see and what food they like to eat. And they are your go-to people for those important things. Your job is very important. Why would you not have a network of recruiters who would be your go-to people to say, hey, I'm looking for a job? Now, a lot of people wait until they're looking for a job to actually start networking with a recruiter. I would say it's the reverse. You should find 8 to 10 recruiters that you really get along with, that you have, some kind of connection with. They may be at a company, like Doug was at Veris, and he then moved on to another company. He's going to remember you because you had a connection, you had a relationship. Matt at one time was working with Geico, and you may have been interviewed by him for Geico, and then all of a sudden he went to go work with Tenable. He may not have been able to hire you at Geico, but he definitely will remember you if you've kept in touch and networked with him, and then be able to find a job at Tenable. And all of the recruiters, they want to make a difference in your life by helping you find a job. So even if they don't have a job for you, if you want to give them a call, any one of these people, if you give them a call and say, I'm feeling uncomfortable in this hiring process, or I have a question about this kind of company and what they're going to do, they're going to answer that question for you. They're going to, help you, because that's what they're all about. And this is the one thing that really frustrates me, is that people don't find recruiters to work with them and touch base with them every 6 months. You should have 8 to 10 recruiters that you really like working with, and you just have a calendar notice that says every 6 months you just sort of do a hey, how's it going? I just finished my CISSP, or I just moved to another company, or I just took on this new challenge. What's going on in your life? It's a short email, but it's something that the recruiter is going to remember, and if they remember the things that you're great at and what you're looking for, and if that opportunity comes available within their company, you are going to be on their I need to call this person list. Does anyone have any comments on that, or do I get an amen?
I think you get an amen, but the one comment I'll make is there's no time too early to start that either. There's way too many students right now to wait till they're a junior, senior to start thinking about, what is my job? Who do I need to reach out to? Where do I need to go? You should start thinking about that as in high school, maybe middle school at this point.
Kindergarten.
Yeah, sorry, the crypto kids, right? One thing I will clarify, I feel needs to be clarified. My day job is to hire the right people and build teams at Tenable, right? That's what I get paid for. That's what I do. What I think, Kathleen, and correct me if I'm wrong, but finding the person, the recruiter that actually can help you, even though you may not get the job at that company, I think is key here. It's almost an advisor. Now, if you've come to me and we've tried and it couldn't happen, if you think I can be helpful to you somewhere else, I will be. You're not going to find a lot of recruiters that actually do that. There are a lot of them out there. You can find some, but knowing that they might actually have your interest at heart, I may not be able to hire you in my company, but I can try to get you somewhere else because I'm here on a Saturday at a security conference, and there aren't very many other recruiters that are here doing this kind of stuff. So find folks like all of us up here that actually care about the community first sometimes. I'm sorry, not first. Sorry, community has to come second sometimes because my paycheck is first. The bank is first. The mortgage is first. But for those that actually give up some of their time to go out and do stuff like this.
So we're going to touch on resumes, and I'm going to do Susie, and then Doug, I'm actually going to give you a break because the next question, it's all you, so you can, lots of pressures. Go get some coffee.
Should I take a nap, do some
You can
stretching?
take a nap. Okay, so let's talk about resumes. There's surveys out there that say that a recruiter only looks at a resume for 7 seconds. There are things that people bury on their resume. There are things that you find on a resume that drive you nuts. You have, as you said earlier, people who submit the same resume 50 different times. We have students in the audience. We have transitioning military. Should we bring our resume to the interview? Pick any of those questions you want to answer. Go, Susie.
If there's one thing that I would recommend to include in your resume are your own personal achievements, because I am looking at a resume in volume because of the nature of the work that I do. I am probably spending no more than 6 seconds on every resume in my initial review. So if there are achievements highlighted somewhere, I know that's what I'm going to, because anything that you've spent time or thought into highlighting on your resume, that's what I'm going to use probably to talk to my hiring manager to say, I'm not going to say 20 years of experience in doing ABC technologies. I'm going to say this guy accomplished ABCD in such a period of time under budget. That's what I'm going to highlight. So if you take the time to include 2 or 3 bullet points that I as a recruiter can share with my hiring manager, that is to your advantage. So that is the one thing that I rarely see on resumes, which is surprising because it's what will differentiate you from the 100 people I had to look through to find the right fit.
I would say on the 7 seconds continuation, it absolutely, unfortunately, does happen. We have so much volume. So when you think about a resume, for me, put what's most important at the front of your resume, whether that's your degree, your certification, your actual experience. Don't bury something significant at the very bottom of your resume. Put it up at the top. There's no set order for a resume in this day and age. And please, for the love of God, don't feel limited to one page. Whoever's been telling students that needs to stop, because If you have enough information for 2 pages or more, make it more, because there's enough information that we want to know about.
So I'm going to ask you about that a little bit. We had a presentation we had earlier about community involvement. Where do you want to see community involvement, and what do you want? That I folded t-shirts, or do you want that I presented at a conference, I competed in a competition? What about community involvement?
So I think any of those are great. The more stuff you can do that's hands-on is great, is even better. Folks that are involved in CCDC in college or CTFs, or they're developing their own tool on the side. I mean, it's whatever you're doing that's beyond your job or your education is significant. You need to highlight that, and that's honestly how you make the next step in jobs, is doing more than just going to work and clocking in and out.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple things, again, on the timing perspective, just to give you some context around maybe some of the jobs we have to work on. I had one recently where I had 852 applications. Do the math. If I spent more than just a little bit of time on that, that would have been my entire week, just looking at reading every single word in those. So yeah, there is a scan, right? And then you kind of filter and do that. So there are a lot of people that come in for very particular jobs. So just understand that side of it. So making yourself stand out is good, and that's how you do that. A couple things about how you can frame it, and this, if you come out later tonight to the happy hour thing, we'll talk more about this, I'm sure. But the resume, think of it, it's a digital document now, right? Unless you're going to a career fair where you have to have a physical copy of your resume, think of it in context of it's going to be on somebody's computer screen. You can add links to it. It doesn't have to tell the whole story. Okay, you can say, in your top, here's some things, but if you want more, go to my LinkedIn. You can list everything on your LinkedIn. And I suggest people do that. Put it all out there if you have it. Some people don't want it. But put as much as you want to there, and that way you can kind of pick and pull from parts of that to build a resume more suited to that job that you're looking at. But I would use that resume, especially in a digital format, to say, here are other places you can find me if you want more on this. Because if you have a lot of background and you think your resume is getting too long and you're pushing into 3 and 4 pages, that's where you can start kind of trunking some of that stuff and saying, find more here, find more there. One piece of advice I'll give, and I tell this every time I do a resume review, the objective section of your resume is antiquated, all right? Objective statements mean, here's what I want from you, company. Summary is, here's me, here's what I do, and here's what I want to do. So, and you can change that and make it something related to the job a little bit every time that you do that. So give your professional summary at the top of your resume, maybe 2 sentences, 3 sentences, if don't want to get too verbose with it, but add that to the top. Replace your objective statement with that.
Sorry. Okay. I do like objective statements, but only when you're transitioning. So if you are transitioning as a student and you're educated in one area but looking for another job in a different area, you need to explain to me as a recruiter why I'm reading everything I'm reading, and your objective statement is going to help me understand why you're looking for another job in a different industry or a different profession or a different career path. I need that. But if you just give me the traditional resume that just has everything that you've done and that you've applied to my, my systems engineering job and you've been a project manager all your life, I'm going to say no. I'm not even going to ask why. I'm not going to call you and say, why did you say no? I'm just going to move on to the next resume. So the objective statement helps me follow or understand why you're applying to the job that is non-traditional to your resume.
Yeah, and I think going back to the summary, less is more sometimes. Those of you that make half your resume, every single skill set under the sun that you've talked to, we're not looking at the skill sets. You tell us what you did, not the single technologies you know in there. If you want skills on to have it captured in resume searches, put it at the bottom of the resume. Have it in there captured. You put it in the top. We've already skimmed through, and we've probably skipped your resume at that point.
So one of the things that pops up a lot in this industry is I have great skills, but I'm unhireable. I'm socially awkward. I have anxiety. I can't get out and meet people. So we actually had this conversation earlier in September, and Doug and I talked a little bit more about it. And people are saying, well, if I consider myself unhireable, and what we mean by that is a definition that was given to us by a conference organizer who actually had an autistic child who was trying to find the way to put them through the job search process. So, you know, socially awkward, depressed, anxiety, what are the things that, Doug, we sort of did some research on, you know, what are the things that we recommend to people who may find themselves or consider themselves in that place?
The unhirables, you know who you are. It's a very broad spectrum, and speaking first to folks who actually are on the autism spectrum, it's fascinating to learn that there are major organizations that are targeting people on the autism spectrum to hire, and not just as some diversity box to check, but because, and this goes to a tool, whether you're on the spectrum or just have similar anxieties that you may bring to the table, what is typical of folks who are going through that is that they have other skills that are very valuable to employers. There's an attention to detail, there's a focus. We all like to talk about creative, out-of-the-box thinking. It's a great phrase, and damn near none of us uses it, because we are rote people. We know how we've analyzed something before, we know how we've approached it, and we will tend to do it over and over again. But for people that are on the spectrum, they can truly see things in a different way, and that is invaluable to an organization. So there are organizations like Google, Booz Allen, Deloitte, all have targeted programs trying to bring more of those folks into the workforce. But just for anyone, looking at what those strengths that come out of those challenges can be is a key, but also understanding that if you have social anxieties, if you do feel awkward in interviews, it goes very much back to the preparation we've talked about. And some of this sounds a little bit goofy, but when you want to get that job, you can Google all the behavioral questions, all the weird questions that interviewers may ask. You can Google a bunch of them and then practice. In your car, when you're alone, ask the question in your head, give a response. Ask your friends, your family, to conduct mock interviews. Stand in front of a mirror and watch yourself. Not just hear the words that you're saying, but watch yourself. How do you appear? Or do you have a nervous tic that you might be able to work on? But that preparation, it becomes a matter, over time, those questions that are asked, and frankly, outside of the technical questions, which are typically the easier ones for folks in this industry, those other questions become, there's only 20 of them. We just couch them 300 different ways. So you'll be able to recognize this is the same question that I practiced, and I've said it so many times, it now just flows out of me naturally. You have to practice. You have to get someone else to practice with you. And if you do that enough, you get a comfort level, and that lowers your nervousness. As you get into an interview, and none of what I just said is working for you in the moment before the interview, take your hand, squeeze it really tight. I mean, drive your fingers into your fist. It is a physiological reaction, you will calm. It may not last forever, but it's a moment. Now, I wouldn't do it in interviews, because that maybe looks a little bit scary. But before the interview, to calm yourself, those deep breaths that people talk about absolutely work. These are physiological rules of nature that are not impacted by any social anxiety. The other details, you're going to an interview. If you have any sort of social anxiety, you're going to be nervous about everything. Plot the route, drive the route. Make sure that you can get there no matter what time of day, 10 to 15 minutes early. Don't go into the interview that early, go in about 5 minutes early, but get there early. Take that anxiety out of it. If you're going to be doing a phone or a Skype interview, make sure your phone works. Make sure Skype's going to work for you. Do it over and over again until you have the absolute confidence that there are not going to be any technical glitches, anything of that nature. So it becomes truly, for almost all of these supposedly unhireable traits, a matter of preparation. And if you're in the interview setting, if a question comes up that throws you for a second, take the deep breath, take a pause. No interviewer worth their salt is going to be upset by that. We like somebody who considers an answer. So take a moment, collect yourself, and then move into the answer. Don't tell them more than they've asked for. Stay focused on the questions, and if there's something that you don't know or you're confused about, ask for clarification. Admit, I'm not familiar with that. I have not worked with that flavor of Linux, but I've worked with this one and I think it crosses over. So I think the preparation is absolutely key, but also know that whatever you're perceiving to be an anxiety or a challenge for you to get the job that you want, first of all, chances are it seems a lot worse to you than it does to us. We are probably not going to pick up on it nearly as much as you might think. And two, there are undoubtedly inherent advantages to that. There are tools you've already developed to overcome it that you just need to accentuate, practice, and remind yourself that, again, even to the extreme of well down the autism spectrum, you actually have gifts. There are things that you are bringing to the table that likely very few of the people on this panel have. And focus on those, focus on how you can present them, and how you can let someone know this is an absolute strength of mine.
Great, thank you.
Actually, if I could add one thing in terms of preparation, you talk about the job that you want. I think too few people, when they're actually interview with more jobs than they should. Here's the thing, you're gonna stress the most out about the job you want. Interview for a job you don't want. And tell you what, you'll actually get the same amount of experience in that and feel a lot more comfortable when you go for that ideal job.
So what's interesting is a lot of people think a big part of the preparation is getting the job, and then they plop down in their seat or their cubicle, and they're like, okay, it's easy going from here. But a lot of people don't use the first few months of their new job to expand upon sort of their career and expand upon, what they're going to do there. So I'm hoping our panelists would sort of, once you've hired somebody, what are some of the things that they should be doing, and what are some of the mistakes you've seen people do?
There you go.
I'm in a unique, I'm probably the last person who should be answering this question because I'm not a corporate recruiter. However, during my tenure at Booz Allen, when I was part of that team, the first thing that we when I hired someone to the team, I was like, it's going to be important for you to remember what it was like for you in college. So everything that you learned about being in college, trying new things, introducing yourself to new people, check out new clubs, something that gets you engaged in college is what you're going to do when you're here at Booz Allen. What do you want to be known for? And that's the mentality I would coach them coming into their first 3 months of Booz Allen. And it's important because what you think you want to be known for are the people you're going to engage with. They're going to sort of recommend you for your next job, your next assignment. I said, that's going to be important for your longevity within the firm. That would be true for any scenario. It's something that I've carried with me ever since my tenure there. I tell my kids this. What do you want to be known for when you get into that organization? Talk to the people who are going to help you achieve those goals. Don't wait for, your job to come, to your current project to come to an end before you're looking for what's next. How do you want to be known as an individual within that firm? So that would be advice that I would give. It's what do you want to be known for and for what's next for you?
And before Kevin talks on this one, I would also say use that first few months to listen, because I know a lot of people come into their first job and they're like, I'm the superstar, I'm the rock star, I'm going to be able to solve all of these companies' problems, that's why they hired me. And lo and behold, you've stepped on everyone's toes, you've pissed them off, no one wants to work with you, and you're out trying to find a job again. I've learned, this was something that someone gave me as a bit of advice 15, 20 years ago, was use the first 6 months as a learning opportunity. Your eyes are wide open. It's all new landscape, but you don't need to correct all the problems and fix them. You just need to sort of gain that knowledge. Kevin?
And I do think in the beginning, you almost need to reaffirm what you were brought in to do and what the actual objectives are. A lot of folks come into a role and realize 3 months later, oh, this isn't what I thought it was. I mean, make those objectives, figure it out quickly with your boss, because you don't want to be in the wrong role for 6 months. You want to be making that change early if you have to.
So we're actually, Matt, Doug, do you have anything?
Just real quick. I know for your career development, you want to move on to things quickly. Just try to temper the, hey, those jobs are real interesting. I've been here 2 weeks. I want to apply for those. Right? do well in the job that you're in. Be clear and understand that this is how I'm performing. This is what I want to do, and how you're doing at that, and do those check-ins with you. Hopefully, your manager's good enough to have those regular check-ins with you. But temper that. That's the job I want. I'm going to go after that after 2 weeks.
So we actually are out of time. I do want to say thank you so much for coming and listening to my friends, these recruiters who obviously are willing to give up their time to give back to the community. All of them are also going to be at the hiring happy hour at 3 o'clock doing resume reviews. So we're going to be available up here for questions afterwards or one-on-one either now or later at the hiring happy hour. So let's thank my panelists.